All right, so we're checking out a brand new play style today. No, just kidding. Doing something a little wacky. Trying this out. This is fun. We did stuff like this a long time ago, far more aggressively. You might remember some of them. But yeah, I'm trying to find ways to like kind of reinvent the game within itself and still have fun doing it, not completely just screw over other people. I really wish there was a way to do this like alone and it still be completable because I would love to experiment with things. But what we're doing here today is we're trying a entire run without a single death strike used. Yeah. So 15 only, of course. People are immediately gonna scoff at that, but you'd be surprised how hard a 15 is without death strike. I haven't changed anything as well. Now, there's a couple things I definitely could change. First of all, voracious doesn't function. Hemostasis doesn't function. So I basically have two dead talents. Yeah, effectively useless talents. Didn't change that at all. Could have completely changed anything, but I wanted to see exactly what it was like. And I thought this would be a fun little one to start with, too, like a little thought experiment as well. One, I wanted to see if anybody else said anything. Two, I wanted to see how challenging it actually was. And the big thing I wanted to see was whether or not it could actually be done and still feel like a tank. Because I was wondering a lot about Blood DK, like, Deathstrike is such a big part of my overall survivability quotient. And I'm like, do I get carried by Deathstrike? I feel like it at times. I was watching, just looking at Jix's footage. And I'm like, you know what, man? I really feel like using CDs well is the crux of good Blood DK gameplay. But I don't use them very well either at times. You know what I mean? We all falter in that pursuit. So I was kind of surprised in general with this run to see how well it went without using Deathstrike at all. And yeah, this is you want to get better at using your CDs, come in a smaller key and try this because I'll tell you what, you're gonna really notice your CDs when you're basically playing. I mean, think about that, right? A blood DK without much self healing at all. You're effectively like maybe like a warrior or something like that. Something that has very little self healing. It's gonna rely entirely on its mitigation kit, things like trinkets, soul binds, stuff like that. So again, we didn't change any of that. We're using Crimson Rune still, which still functions fine. We're using the Corian dude who gives like a fair amount of damage reduction as well. So still relatively the same, exact same build I would have used. Kind of also Red Thirst. I was considering dropping Red Thirst, but it does still function. It doesn't actually require Death Strike to be used for that. But I will say Red Thirst without Death Strike coming after it is not as good. So but yeah, we're going to see our first real problems here. I didn't really run into any problems at all in this run, and nobody commented, nobody noticed at all. Not really much, to note here, but it was interesting nonetheless. So I also wanted to see like just how much damage Blood Boy or whatever. I don't even know what the name of the spell is. The spell Death Coil. Yes, you throw a little, you throw a little thing at them off. I don't typically use a lot of Death Coil, as you can tell. But it's our only real runic power dump. Could have taken Bone Storm, and it probably would have been better here. But really, that is our one true mistake. Really did not take that pack serious at all. And it complicates the key for sure. So I tell you, the thing I take away from this the most is it is really dependent on the healer not being behind. Okay. And what I mean by that is not just be like in terms of mana usage or something like that, but also I was about to invis pop, but then I see the demon hunter coming. I was talking more about like the healer being there. A couple times we're gonna have a couple of problems in this key, and it's gonna be because of that. Like when I'm good, like when I have CDs up and the healer's there healing you, doesn't really feel like anything's wrong. But when I'm getting up ahead of the group, the healer's not ready, the healer's not there, I'm already low. That's kind of the big problem with Blood DK, right? It's like I constantly go into packs low, and it typically wouldn't matter because Vamp Blood, couple death strikes before anything even happens, I'm back to full health, no problem. But in this situation, it's like I'm basically starting with half health, so that's not good. But I think we recover well here. It doesn't really slow us down too much. Prides are also something I was surprised with. I didn't really feel like I was in much danger. The only time I ever really felt like I was in any danger at all was in runs, parts of the run where I was, kind of lower health going into the pack, and the healer was either behind or struggling. And to be fair, I don't really think. Well, first of all, I can't blame the guy, but second of all, I don't really think he was ready to heal this dungeon either. This guy is like 800 score or something like that. I think I hover over it at some point in the run. I don't remember when, but I remember looking at a green number. I don't know what green is nowadays, but this guy was definitely probably a friend of somebody because they're all Area 52. Maybe all four are friends. I don't know. they don't know what they got themselves into. But to be fair, it went fine. Yeah, that was the thing. If it didn't, I had some ideas in my head about how to rectify it. I'd be like, here, tell me, let's do another key. I'd do it properly or something like that. That's what I think. Like if it's a complete disaster, we'll see. It's the only time I've ever tried this. I was thinking between 14 and 15, but I feel like 15 was the better target because it's like, yeah, there you go. 852. You can't see it, but it's under the webcam. But yeah, 852, that shaman healer. So yeah, who's more qualified at this point? I don't know. The guy who's not using Death Strike. Anyway, so yeah, it's really not a problem at all on bosses. In fact, it's barely noticeable. Like I said, the big thing is I would just be overhealing like crazy on this fight. On a fight like this, I'm lower health, 70 some percent, kind of just sitting there waiting for the guy to heal me. But it doesn't really matter because I'm not taking any real damage here. That's kind of just damage that I hadn't healed up from before. My health pool's so large, takes a while to get that. But realistically, like I'd have, yeah, try to stand in mechanics to see what it's like. It doesn't really do anything. These fights barely do anything to me at all. Mostly probably because it's a 15, but realistically, I kind of also was thinking about this, like, this is a 15. No, you might not be satisfied to hear this, but it's like if I could do this, what's the thing holding other tanks back? That's the kind of the question. Obviously, the gear helps a lot, but you're gonna see at the end. I mean, the trinkets are good. Yeah, they're pretty solid, but past that, it's really not anything special. You know what I mean? It's kind of just like a very mediocre class that doesn't really have anything going for it other than maybe a couple interesting CDs that could be used here and there. So it's quite a curious little experiment, and I'm quite surprised that the run didn't like there wasn't any blowups like we would. I would have expected that. I would have expected somebody to be more curious, or at least somebody to say like, "Hey, is there a reason you have not used a single death strike? Like, is that clear? Like, I've not used a single death strike, right? I mean, maybe they're just not paying attention." I don't know. This was funny though. There's a couple of times when I realize I now have a ranged good, like a good range damaging spell. So instead of dropping Death and Decay on Global Zero, I can just spend Runic Power on Global Zero. It's like, oh, this is great. I can actually do something on the way to get the pack. So I pull like multiple packs with Death Coil, and I'm like, oh my god, they're gonna find out now. They're gonna know. Are they gonna notice? Is somebody gonna be like, why is this guy pulling with Death Coil? It's just like so wacky, probably. I don't know. Most people probably don't even know much about the class, I guess, but another hard part coming up here. This maze is actually harder than I expected. There's a lot of stuff, mechanics going on. A lot of it dodgeable, luckily, so I'm able to get out of these flurries, no problem. But we do have, actually, the healer dies here. Typically, I'd be like, that's perfectly fine. Like, there's no problems whatsoever with the healer dying. Certainly not on, trash, like, die, like, just 4 mobs. Nothing problematic at all. I could easily survive that alone. But all of a sudden, I don't have the ability to do that. So I have to do a lot more kiting, a lot more creativity. I'll tell you what, I'm very satisfied with how this made me think as a player. Even though it's a little trolly, kind of maybe, some people aren't the fondest thing of it. I do think it's a fun little experiment because it's really like, see, I'm sitting there. I'm like, okay, I know I have Icebound. I know I have Vamplet coming up. I know I have Trinket. It's up right now. Let's see what we need when we need it. There's a Trinket. Let's use that. Spirit Flurry, make sure we're dodging that. Try to stun these things. Just try to be very cognizant of everything that's happening. Play a lot differently, a lot more conscious. That guy dies. I don't exactly know how, but he dies. And now it's like, oh, hold on a second. This isn't the same class now. We got to be very careful. Like I back out of range, make sure I'm not taking damage. Careful, careful, careful. No way to heal up. I mean, health pot. I'm trying not to use health pots too much. Realistically, I could have just used health pots on CD and probably would have been pretty fine here. I tried only to use them when I really needed them, but I know I can get out of, the area there, survive it. I thought we didn't get the seed because I thought I was the only Night Fae, but Demon Hunter's also Night Fae, or somebody, maybe the warrior. Not sure. Somebody gets it. So he's going to res. Instead, I'll do the maze, right? So trying to be productive. I'll tell you what, another thing that's quite funny about this, I don't know when the last time I did a key, or I wasn't constantly looking over at the stream chat, right? It's so much easier to play the game when I'm looking at the screen for 100% of it. I don't think I could do this on stream. I definitely couldn't do this while reading chat. Like, it would be super bad. Like, we'd be getting slaughtered. But between Rune Weapon, between Vamp Blood, I mean, look at how many CDs we can layer. It's kind of crazy. So again, if you ever think like, man, I'm really not getting a good visual sense for these CDs, go in and don't use Death Strike. Don't stop getting carried by Death Strike. That's it. I'm convinced I'm getting carried by Death Strike. There's good Death Strikes, there's bad Death Strikes, there's, mediocre Death Strikes, but it's all ridiculous. Like, When you look at the overall, like we looked at 250 death strikes per run. I mean, that is so many heals that I'm casting on myself. It's ridiculous. No other tank has that luxury. No other tank is going to cast a big heal on themselves 250 times. So it's kind of wild when you realize what you're taking out of the kit. I think that's kind of the big takeaway here. And these kind of mini bosses as well. I was like, okay, this is gonna be very challenging. I'm very interested in this. Didn't really come into it ready though. Watch this. So this stacking bleed thing it puts on is actually very dangerous. First one, completely negligible. I'm not even thinking about it. Right? It doesn't even matter. Watch the third or fourth. But I am thinking like, oh, this guy's gonna drop that little puddle. I'm gonna grab a little bit of healing off that. You got to start thinking in that direction here when you're struggling to survive. So there we go. We're moving it out. I'm going to swing back around, go back into that thing. A little bit of healing. Oh, no, that second hit, though. Oh, my God. That's a lot of damage taken. Certainly, when you look down at the HPS chart and you see the healer barely beating you, you get a little worried. I'm doing a fair amount of healing. You're going to see the breakdown at the end. It's actually quite interesting. The kit is more than just Death Strike. Who'd have thunk it? I also don't have Blood Shield. So Mastery, completely useless. I mean, it's effectively zero value. Yeah, not really a supported game style, let's put it that way. I also never noticed how much that mob healed. That healed for almost 10% there. Pretty crazy. I tried to move it as fast as I could, but that time using Vampla or using Icebound there to make sure. So another problem here is when we have trash coming into Pride because I'm constantly low health, healer's a little behind. So we have to approach this differently. As you see, still got 4 stacks of this bleed. I'm starting to panic, starting to look around a bit, but we got Link down. We got all kinds of CDs coming up. And again, trying not to use too many health pots just so it doesn't feel like because obviously probably can do this without gear on at this point if I had maximized setup. But yeah, so very interesting. Have to play better. Have to be more cognizant going in from one pack to the next, especially without CDs up. Like Vamp Blood is so big because obviously it's not only going to help me survive, but it's also going to help the healer catch up on me. And a pack like this is one of them. Look at, we're all low. You could tell, right? Like the healer's going to struggle here. We're all low. I don't have any CDs up whatsoever. So here we go. First, bona fide, this is it. If I stay in, I die. Kite Met is back, boys. You guys have been talking about it all season. tell me tell me what it's like playing without Test Strike. I can see it now. So we just dip out of range, come back, trinkets up. You know what I'm saying? If I stayed in there, I'm dying for sure. That healer's going to struggle. And it was just, we were at a deficit from the get-go. So that's it. Now we're sitting here thinking, I got to kill these spiteful shades. Typically, big problem in Mists Eternal Sight is you can't out advance until you kill the shades. Oh, yeah, but there's no door there, right? Good game design. So anyway, we go in here. We got all CDs. Time for big pack, 5-pack. This is actually probably the hardest pack in the gauntlet, and we're going to do it really well. Again, I'm looking at CDs, thinking about when and where Vamp Blood's coming right now. A little bit low health already. We're making sure we're moving out. Again, little kiting here. Throw in those death coils, as you see. Nobody else sees. Don't tell them. But yeah, a little gripping there, a little interrupting. We're going to move again. Going to keep kiting because I know what's coming next. We got to be very careful. Actually, I think we're doing Pride and Boss next, but of course we're not there yet. We have one more room to go through. And here, it's just a nice little kite. No problem at all. Very, very good control. Pack is very controllable for Blood DK. Any type of real like trash that can't be slowed is a problem. But yeah, any packs that are fully CCable, Blood DK has really good control over. Another great thing here, showing off the versatility of Blood DK's kit, man. They have a lot of answers for a lot of scenarios in 5-mans right now. And I think this is a good showcase of that. The fact that we're able to relatively easily survive without issue. And I know, it's about 4 or 5 keys lower than where my progression point is, but gear's really not that hard to come by. You know what I mean? It's not like I'm wearing gear that most people wouldn't have access to if they had been playing all season. And there's still people out there struggling with 15. So we're getting a good look at it, I feel like. It's also, like I said so many times now, it's such a good training aid to pay more attention to your actual CDs, to be more attentive to your health pool, more in sync with your healer, more in tune with the damage patterns in the dungeon, and get a better feel overall for where the danger is going to come, how you're going to respond to that danger, and not just kind of sit there and brute force it, which is what I do a lot on DK. So their trinket comes up real big. I'm staring at the CD. I know it's coming, but this is a dangerous time here. We have a bunch of mobs still up, bunch of Pride or Spiteful still up. Pride is out too. So I know we're in serious danger here. These types of scenarios are where it's going to be the hardest. So we're sitting here thinking, I'm going to drag them away a little bit. That mob's almost dead. Just trying to kite and trying to stay in range of Pride without any issues. The rock Ellie's down. A little confusing. I forgot we had all these rock Ellies. So I'm kind of taunting off at like a not very good not very good play. But we throw down AMZ here. This Demon Hunter, moving, posturing very well, but definitely easier when we have Rock Ellie and all that stuff. No problems there. And like I was saying, just make sure we're using AMZ on every Pride. That's one of the main things. AMS and AMZ are so valuable for Pride, but it's important. And there's a little pull, pulling with Death Coil. It's funny. I don't know. It just makes me laugh. But here we have, yeah, this boss is actually pretty dangerous. This is one of the bosses that I would typically do a lot of self-healing on. There's some times, especially on Tyrannical, where the whole group is taking a lot of damage, and it's relatively high magic damage in these kind of guessing game phases. So kind of something you want to be aware of, but the healer's got a good tax on it. He seems to have what he needs. Just got to identify the right one. Go over there. Don't lose track of the Miss Caller's cast, of course. Patty Cake coming up. If I ever miss that, that would probably be the key right there. Certainly could survive with AMS, but definitely won't survive past that because that's going to do a ton of damage, and we don't have Death Strike to carry us, like I was saying. So get a little stun on the Vulpin there. Make sure we're helping out. Another kind of stuns right over top of that, no problem. And a little Hex there. It's a good play on his part. Could also, something I'm pretty aggressive here that I try not to do very often, but I can AMS and then grip the Vulpin in, and it will actually get rid of it. The problem is if I'm too close to the melee, it will hit them too, and you obviously don't want to do that. But if you ever have a group where there's no melee, yeah, like nobody anywhere close to melee range, playing a Blood DK, might want to do that every once in a while. AMS, you probably don't need it elsewhere. Grip that mob in so people aren't, like right now, that would have been a great time for it. That dude was dead to rights. If we didn't get 5 stuns on that thing, he was going to die to it. Going right back, standing right next to it. He's not worried. Fancy little Troll Shaman. Troll Shaman's got the best animations. See him get smacked by that volcano. You see that? He's not worried about this one either. I'm pretty sure this one hits him. Walks right into him. Yeah, literally just standing still. Thanks for stopping by. Looks like a mage and ice block, but he is not. So not the most aware, but I'll tell you, give the guy credit. He managed to heal Blood DK without Death Strike being used once. How nuts is that? So anyway, final time here. Pretty straightforward. Probably should be using AMZ at some point in this fight. Kind of forget about it, frankly. Not really used to it. Like I said, another thing really makes me hyper aware of my CDs. Paying very close attention to the Vulpin. Trying not to get hit by him. He's kind of chasing this Edgelord Tay, which is just an absolutely appropriate name for a Havoc Demon Hunter. And that dude masterfully dodges the demons and the Vulpins. He should be a Vulpin hunter as well. So Vulpir Demon Hunter, maybe they'll do that someday. Jix would probably love that. But now let's move on. So we got a really unfortunate series of events coming up here. This is the part that it starts to shine. I'm actually surprised because typically I would look at this as the easiest trash in the dungeon. But it's a lot more. Let's put it this way. There's a lot of chip damage in this area, and there's not a lot of ability to kite, and not a lot of room, or the mobs don't have a lot of patience for kiting. Let's put it that way. So things don't go great down here. We have 11 minutes coming down here. It should be an easy upgrade, and it will be, but it gets a little dicey, okay? And a big part of that is simply because I am unnerved by the pack previous impacting the next pack, right? So we're talking about going into a pack low, going to a pack without CDs, being unconfident, non-confident in the pack's pull, like the start of the pull. What can I do? Why will I die? Why will I not die? The answer is much muddier on when you do not have Death Strike available. So this opening pack, obviously no problem. We're going to get the interrupts and do a little grip shenanigans to try to keep damage reduction for the whole group. But as you see, I'm the only one who's taking any damage, so no problem. But I know what's coming next. Typically, this would be a big pull. We'd often have Pride here. We do not currently because of the way the route played out. But very high amount of mobs, and that poison debuff, I'm scared to death of it. Hopefully it will not come into play, and we're going to avoid pulling that pack on purpose. The big thing I'm thinking here is if I need to kite, how do I do it in this area? Way too many mobs to get out of range of all of them. A lot of stuff going on the ground, but simply kill them fast is the solution for us in this first pack. We're just going to have that get smacked by a volcano, no problem. We're not too worried about that, but obviously that's damage we don't want to take. So here we go. This is where things start to get really dicey. These mobs are probably the hardest mob in the whole dungeon, honestly, for us. And we're not going to have the ability to easily survive all that stuff. That guy getting smacked around there, I don't know what that was. That dude barely survived. He must have got hit by that thing on the ground. But yeah, playing very cautious here, trying to very not die at all costs here. But as you see, we're really maybe the healer's struggling too because of the poison. We don't have a poison dispel in the group, so we're taking a lot of damage here. Shades are now coming out. I'm like, let's just get out of here, man. I'm not trying to die to that thing. Kite a bit, keep it at distance. I got the poison debuff now. So now I'm in serious trouble, and this is ultimately going to lead to a serious mistake here. And so I go in super timid because I'm like, this poison thing, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I generate no threat. Thanks for stopping by, Elemental Shaman. That dude's going to get smacked. The Rock Ellie comes down far too late to recognize, and that man is dead. The rest of the Shaman probably thinks he's surviving that, but he's not. Watch this. Oh, no, I get knocked back, but luckily the Blink saves me. I don't know if it does or not. Not sure if I would have died there, but we are in trouble now, my friends. 4 mobs, but guess what's coming up? The Pride. We've been talking about this the whole dungeon. It's really our biggest bane with this. Going into the Pride at low health with mobs up has really been noticeable for us here. And that is exactly what is about to happen. We got 3 mobs alive. This Demon Hunter is chasing me with that magic debuff, trying to stay away from as much damage as I can. Rock Ellie's going to crumble, turn to rubble. And now it is time to survive at all costs. Guess what? Not going to happen. People getting hit by stuff. Pride's coming towards a 10 stack there. Put AMZ down. Not going to work. Healer gets hit by the Prideful Boast, or perhaps it is the Spitefuls that kill him. Not 100% sure. People are going down like the Titanic. Demon Hunter dies. Also to the Spiteful mob. So that's it. Our whole group has now died, and I don't have Death Strike. So I'm like, AMZ? Nah, it's over, man. We're done. Let's wipe it up. We come back, and again, the patented double wipe to Pride occurs. This is actually a bug. I feel like it has to be, right? So that guy just goes up, gets in combat. I'm like, all right, well, that's fine. I'm not in combat. At least it's not going to happen. Oh, it happens again. All right, 47%. Let's go. We got it. No problem. No Death Strike. No problem. We're going to go and we got AMS up. Might as well use it. Taking a fair amount of time to get damage off there. So we'll see. This is going to be a little risky. Again, healer's behind. He's not the most ready for a lot of these situations too. Healing Tide comes up, but it's a little too late. Down like the Titanic says blue healing, but we're good. We got 6 minutes left. It's going to be a little tight now. A lot of deaths here. 15 deaths. 5 of them are the healer. And again, give him props to being able to pull this off, especially with the lack of experience that he seems to have demonstrated on this character. So we got to wait. Now we got Pride ticking. Pride is ticking. No death strikes. 59% health. How do we handle it? We got Trinket going down to 40-30 right there. Big heal up from the Trinket. And that's going to give us the cushion we need. These guys are going to absolutely pump. 20K from Ellie, man. I'm telling you, I like seeing Ellie. Didn't necessarily come in big with the Rock Ellies, but there was a couple good ones. That dude probably should have saved that for when he pulled threat on the pack of 4 mobs and died, right? Now, but so big pull here. Again, just get out of range. No reason to kite. No reason not to kite here. Be a little cognizant. They're putting down root totems and stuff. Don't really need that. Just a little bit of safety here. Back in with the rune weapons backup. That's a nice thing about the situation with rune weapon. You know, it is pretty good. It's probably more valuable in a key like this. A lot of magic damage, but also a lot of physical hits. So pairing those are pretty big. And we're just trying to keep an eye on the timer here. We got 5 minutes. I know one more mistake is probably going to be the key, but the damage is doing really well here. And I'm going to say, even though, of course, Death Strike, one of our hardest hitting abilities, yeah, Death Coil is really nothing to sneeze at. It's definitely not terrible. It's not like we're doing 0 damage either. We're doing pretty decent damage here. So I know we're doing a decent job. And see what I did here? I pulled that pack back. Typically, I would never do this. Terrible idea because the pack gets all spread out. Damage gets different coordinations. And it's just a little messy in general. But I feel like I need to do that because I need to make sure that the healer is as close to me as possible. And if I run up that ramp, drop D&D and start spreading like I normally do, it's probably going to be out of range of the healer. He's going to struggle to get up to me. So I'm already thinking about that. Like, let's make the healer's life easier so he can make my life easier. He rises to the occasion. We are going to have our easy upgrade with 15 deaths, 2 full wipes, basically. Complete disaster early, was not prepared for that pack. And other than that, real problem is just kind of going into prides with, having a low health, a little bit of a health deficit. Healer's a little behind, maybe he's a little panicked, stricken, not sure. But yeah, super easy. Prides are dying so fast. Kind of crazy, actually, how quick they die on these lower keys. And that is pretty much it. We're going to walk over this last boss. really going to slaughter it. Take a little bit, a couple risks here we don't really need to take. But yeah, in terms of overall healing and damage, we're going to check that out too. So I would say this is fun. I was thinking about like what other options there would be that don't feel like super aggressive. Like I'm trying to toe the line here. Like, a long time ago I said like I don't want to troll other people's keys. I'm a big supporter of like people not leaving keys and people being respectful for the keys. So it does feel like a little bit counter to that when we're doing stuff like this. But I feel like this is benign enough. It's interesting enough. You know what I mean? Like it's perfectly. There's no reason that I shouldn't be able to do this, and it's actually been like a very eye-opening experience. So here's a good moment here, right? So typically I would stay in for at least one of these, two of these, but I get hit by that really hard, no death strike afterwards. So these are the kind of scenarios where you start to really appreciate what the kid has to offer, right? And yeah, without those well-timed death strikes, DK is a whole different beast. But absolutely carving this boss up, and he's going to die really quick. So this time we're not going to take any risks. Let's just get out. But in terms of what other options we might have, I mean, Death Strike obviously is such a big part of the kit, and really synergistically, talent-wise, it's so crazy. You could try to push this, but I don't really feel like it's a great great endeavor. Maybe like no CD runs, you know what I mean? Like literally don't use a single CD. That's probably going to be even worse than this, honestly. I don't know how good. Yeah, it'd be interesting to compare the two. Really, do the exact same key again with no CDs this time. What would you consider a CD? I don't know. Brainstorm a bit, maybe think of something, but yeah, I don't want to do anything too crazy, but as we see, very comfortable. What do we have? A couple minutes left there, right? Missed, no, 2 minutes ahead of timer, so pretty comfortable given all those mistakes. Got a little anima. Let's take a look at the breakdown here. So let's pause this real quick. So we have Blood Barrier as our top heal. So little cheesy, obviously such a big deal. Also the other trinket. So yeah, 30 some percent of about 40% of our healing were 2 trinkets. But I'm very interested in seeing Unholy Strength that high. So typically you would see Leech as number 3, number 2 being Bone Shield or Blood Shield, and number 1 being Death Strike by a mile, be like 40 some percent, or maybe even closer to 60 depending on the content. Blood Shield, obviously your mastery, very good as well. It's kind of just free damage reduction over the course of a dungeon. Never really that useful, but obviously you want to see that. And we don't see either of those things. So we basically cut our healing down by like 60%. Still did 1.8k HPS overall. So I'd be interested, maybe you guys playing other tanks, like where do you think your tank would have ended up, with the full kit? Where would have been? Blood Plague, actually worse than I expected. And of course, Leech, without Voracious, you see how little Leech we actually got. That's pretty interesting because usually it's like way more, way more than that. So pretty interesting to see that overall breakdown. AMS, Will, and Acropolis didn't really do much, but yeah, we only used a few healing pots. Let's take a look at the actual damage breakdown as well. So melee top damage, which I don't think really has anything to do with this, but it is a bit surprising. Blood Boil usually a lot higher. And yeah, no Death Strike at all. So you actually see Death Coil below Death's Due. So definitely way worse than Death Strike itself. Usually Death Strike would be right around Heart Strike level there, depending on the key and the week. But yeah, really interesting, eye-opening experience. Hope you guys take this as a fun little thing to do. Let me know if you have any ideas or anything you want to chat about. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. And again, I will say this very, very confidently. It really did open my eyes to Blood DK. It feels so interesting when you're constantly, you're thinking about every CD. You have to make the right decisions with CDs, and I feel like it's a decent training aid for that. Like for real, if you're ever feeling like you're having trouble, go into a key and don't get carried by Death Strike. Find ways to make use of all your CDs, maximize each usage, feel like you're confident using them, and you'll just be a better player, I think, honestly, just by doing that.